Good day, Zog Mad Dog here, and welcome back to CSS for World Anvil. Today we're going to be talking about containers, how to stylize them, some of the features and properties that you can use, and also how to find which container you're trying to edit. Before we begin, I would like to make one correction to my previous episode involving this bit here, which is the description of your world or the exposition included on the homepage of your world. Despite it being under the subheading division, it doesn't like to keep the font that's given to it when you reload the page. So you just still have to be okay with that text being the same as regular generic text throughout your world. Under the .user-css overall division, which covers any text not included in a container that makes more specific adjustments to the actual text. If any of that's confusing, go ahead and DM me on Discord, or catch my Monday streams where I do help with CSS. That's at 6 p.m. Central Time. And that is at twitch.tv/zogmaddog. Alright, with that out of the way, let's go on to containers. Containers are like blocks within the overall page. So every time you see a box or a column or a large header or footer, and even the sidebar, those are all considered containers. And we can see those by opening up our DevTools and using our inspect element. And as you can see, all of these boxes that appear as we kind of scroll up across the page, those are all the containers. So what I mean by editing containers is anywhere where there's a block of text, we can do things such as add borders, change the background color, and some other fun features. So I think we'll try to do that with the template article, or the article panel where your recent articles appear. You can also do this with the featured articles panel as well. First things first, we need to reference the class. .user-css space and .article-panel. Our brackets. And then we can decide a property to change. First, I would like to try to get rid of the background. We can do this by simply typing background, none. But the text is going to be hard to see, and you can't really tell it's a clickable item. So instead of no background, I think I'm just going to put a very lightly colored background. And I'm going to use the RGBA color coder in order to put a color in and then decide its opacity. This works the same as RGB, where you type in the 3 color codes. In this case, I'm going to try 10, 10, 10, followed by a number between 0 and 1, which indicates the percentage of opacity for the element. In this case, I think 0.2. Now, with the transparency, I think it looks a little bit blocky, and I would like to round the corners and add a border. We'll start by adding the border, which is simple with the border property. Then you need to type in the thickness of the border, the style of border, and the color. In this case, I'm going to choose 3 pixels wide, a solid border, and I'm going to use a similar color with similar transparency to the background. Now, to round the corners, I'm going to use the border radius property. And here, we just type in the radius we want in pixels. I'm thinking 10 pixels will look pretty good. Now, again, to help break up some of those hard edges, I'm going to place a shadow, which we can do for the entire element by typing in the box-shadow property. This works the same as text shadow, so just type in the similar numbers, in this case 0 pixels, 0 pixels, and 20 pixels, and I get this nice shadow around the edges that helps break up those hard lines. Now I would like to change the font and color of the text within our container. With these article panels, it's a bit finicky because there's actually 3 different classes of text within one small area. The title of the article is under the H5 class, the subtext is under subheading, and then we also have the date the article was written or published. So we'll have to change all 3 of those individually, at least sort of. So let's go ahead and get started with what that's going to look like. First, I'm going to reference the H5 class. We're going to copy the font and color from another place. I'm stealing it from my H2 class. And as we can see, it changes the font for here in the recent article blocks, as well as under the world codex for these lines that also reference the H5 class. This can be a little bit tricky later on when you just want to change one specific text, but you realize the class is tied to several other lines. So just be aware of that. Now, say I wanted to make the font bigger within the recent articles containers. Normally, I would use the font size property and say make it 20 pixels. But as you can see, the only text it's changed is over here in the world codex. That's because more specific container, the article panel, is already giving a font size for the text within it. In this case, we'll actually have to directly reference the article panel's H5, and we can do this by being more specific in our class references. Instead of just .user-css space H5, we can add .article-panel between the user CSS and H5, and now it will specifically reference only the H5 classes within the article panels. This is how you will reference more and more specific areas to edit just one thing rather than editing for your entire world. I'm also going to copy some text shadow over to help blend the font in a little bit better. Now, we're going to reference the subheading specifically. In this case, I'm just going to copy the text that we already have here referencing the H5, delete H5, and type in .subheading. And as we can see, it's going to change that subheading. Of course, we don't want the font to be that large. Let's go ahead and reduce it to something more reasonable. I think 12 pixels works all right. And I don't think this piece needs a text shadow because the text is already pretty small. Now, the last thing we need to change is the date. It looks like the class is going to be .date. So again, we'll copy the same thing and replace .subheading with .date. And there we go. That is how you can edit a container to look a little bit more snazzy on your world. That is all I have for you today. Thank you so much for joining. If you liked the video, please make sure to drop a like, consider subscribing so you can catch more tutorials like this, and also check me out on Twitch, especially if you're needing help with CSS, because I run the CSS Q&A streams every Monday at 6 p.m. Central Time. Again, thank you for joining. I hope you have a wonderful day.